The supply chain crisis has had a huge impact on the global auto market, and we've been talking about it pretty much day in, day out. Car makers have seen production stalled and shipments delayed due to the semiconductor shortages, making it tough for them to meet demand. This has given a boost to the used car market, the second-hand car sales, as consumers look to buy those vehicles to essentially cope with the rising need to have cars. India is one of the biggest markets for used cars, with sales expected to hit 8.3 million in 4 years, according to reports. So clearly there is a lot of focus on that front in the region. Let's talk more about that with Sandeep Aggarwal, Chairman and CEO of Droom, an online auto marketplace in India. He joins us live from New Delhi. It's great to see you, Sandeep. Thank you very much for your time. How much of a boom have you seen, let's say from the start of the year, in the last 3 months, in second-hand car sales because of what's happening on the chip side?
Our business has seen almost 3x increase if you look at the last few months, and chip shortage has absolutely played a major role because new cars remain in shortage. But there are many other factors, but overall we have seen almost like a 3 times increase in the last, I would say, 4 or 5 months.
Over what base?
Earlier we were, we run an online marketplace, and earlier we were doing like 3,000 to 4,000, 6,000 automobiles a month. Now this number is north of 15,000 a month.
Okay, interesting. You said something out there where you pointed out that this is not, that demand pickup is not only being driven by chip shortages. What are the catalysts that are leading to such a high increase in used car sales?
Absolutely. So after COVID, after COVID, people no longer prefer rideshare. People no longer prefer public transportation. And those two things are also leading demand for the personal mobility, and hence the higher demand for used cars. Second is that India is adding 8 to 10 million urban population every year, and that creates a fundamentally new demand for the used cars. And there are multiple other factors. Because of the weak economy, people are in general gravitating more towards a used car, which is serving as a better value. And then one thing more I would like to highlight: 2 years back, India moved fuel emission standard from BS4 to BS6. So technically, the new car became even more expensive when a user calculates total cost of ownership. So these are the other factors which are fueling the used car demand in India.
Cars have traditionally always been considered a depreciating asset, and yet about 6 months ago, Sandeep, I bought a used car and was amazed to see when I checked on its price just recently, it's actually, if I bought the same car, same year now, it's actually more expensive. In other words, it's appreciated. What is the price differential now in India between a new car and a used car?
Sure. So typically, if you take a 3 or 4 year old used car, you will find a 40% price difference in a new car versus used car, and used car being 40% lesser priced. We have seen some of that gap bridging because of the chip shortage and other factors. But I would say that gap, instead of 40%, would be more like 35 or 32%. And still, the used car buying remains very, very compelling. At least in India, when I read what is happening globally, I think the gap has narrowed down much more. But here it still remains a lot.
Indeed it does. Do you feel that COVID has fundamentally changed our view of car ownership in the same way that it's changed our view of home ownership, because so many people just don't want to ride on public transport anymore?
Absolutely. That's a very, very major factor. If you recall, before COVID, for 10 years, the world would talk about shared economy. So we will talk about every new age company or anything which will enable a shared economy and it has its own value. But COVID, in a very harsh manner, reminded to the mankind the benefits of owning something rather than sharing something. And that has brought a fundamental shift in human behavior. As I mentioned earlier, people no longer prefer ride share. People no longer prefer public transportation. And so the ownership of the cars is on the rise.
It's very interesting. We go in cycles, don't we? Because the share economy was such a big thing pre-COVID.
I know.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Sandeep Aggarwal. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you for having
us. Joining us there from Droom Technology. Thank you. Coming up, Western leaders